Okay. I think... I'm trying to help the gays! Do you have any advice? She said dogs for trans rights. Welcome to the Oliver's Antics channel, where I still don't have a proper setup for filming facecam videos. You read the title, you know what's up, and also if you follow me on Instagram, you should be following me on Instagram, by the way. You also saw this video coming because I put on my Instagram story that I'm going to be doing an LGBT themed Q&A. It's kind of obvious from the title, so I don't know why I'm saying it like it's a surprise. And before I get into this video, I want to say that any sort of advice that I give in this video, or any opinions that I give in this video, or just anything along those lines are based solely on my experience as a person in the LGBT community. My experience is not universal to everybody in the LGBT community, even those people who have the same labels as me. I am a bisexual trans man, and so everything that I'm saying in this video is from that point of view. Oof, 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 oof. I have my questions here. I'm surprised they didn't drop that. And I decided to answer the most commonly asked questions first, and then get into the more of like the random one-off questions that I thought would be interesting to talk about. So I kind of arranged the most commonly asked questions to make the video flow a little bit nicer, so I'm going to be starting with how I knew I was who I am, and then moving on to how I came out, and then advice that I have for anybody who is wanting to come out. That sound good? Cool. Because that's what's gonna happen, even if you don't think it's cool, so. Starting with the very asked question, how did I know I was trans/bi? Kind of in the same boat, there were questions asking how I found out about the LGBT community and also what age I was when I started figuring things out. So I think one thing that not a lot of people really talk about is that there is a big difference between questioning and discovering, which seems like an obvious thing. People don't realize that sometimes there is a big gap between questioning and figuring it out. Growing up, I didn't really have a lot of experience to the LGBT community, and that's not because my family was like super conservative and trying to protect me from the gays. The first time I found out about like what the LGBT community is was around like 11 or 12. I had heard the word gay before that, but I didn't just like... Can you not? I had heard the word gay before then, but I didn't really know what it meant, really. I started questioning things around the time I found out about the LGBT community, and then the first time that I ever came out to anybody was when I was 15, I believe. I guess that's a nice time to transition into how did you come out? So the first person that I ever came out to was my best friend at the time, and I came out in person. We were hanging out underneath the stairs at a library, like the emo kids we were. And pretty much every other person in my life, I came out via text message or DMs. And also when I came out, I originally came out as non-binary, and then later on started identifying as a guy, which again goes back to big gap between questioning and figuring things out. What advice do I have for anybody who wants to come out? Really the biggest piece of advice that I can give is to make sure that you are absolutely happy and comfortable in your own skin before telling anybody else. I came out at a time where I was still very vulnerable and still very self-conscious about who I was, which was a really big mistake on my part. There are going to be people who don't support you in your life, and that sucks, but it's just the truth. So it's really important for you to get to that point where you're so happy with yourself, because at that point, you know who you are and you know that nothing else is going to change that. I know that that's a lot easier said than done. Self-acceptance is a really long road, and honestly, I hate myself still, but I am in a better place now from when I originally came out. Also, another quick piece of advice: if you feel like coming out would put you in any sort of danger, do not do it. Your safety always comes first, and so if you fear that you are going to be kicked out of your house or some other thing that would put you in some sort of danger, don't do it, because even though it's great to be out, if it's going to put you in any sort of danger, it's not worth it. So in a similar topic, people asked how to come out to people who aren't supportive. If you are a longtime follower of me on Instagram, you would know that my relationship with my mom has been pretty rocky. It's not something that I've really been keeping a secret. It's not something that I'm afraid to talk about. And I can definitely tell you from firsthand experience, having somebody in your life not support you is really, really tough, especially when that someone is like a parent or any other family member. There are times where you can take that person and work on your relationship and make a better relationship with them. and there are ways that you can educate them and help them understand. But it's really important to know that that is a long process. It's not just as easy as sitting down, having a conversation with them, and everything's just great, man. I feel like a lot of people can get confused as to like, should I try and make this person understand? Should I cut this person out of my life? And I think whether or not this person is going to stay in your life entirely depends on their willingness to learn. Because the way I see it, for the people in my life who don't get it, they don't need to get it, they just need to try and get it. As they go on in their life, they can just never understand, and in my eyes, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If they are actively trying to learn and get better and understand you as a person, even if they can't get there, at that point, that person is definitely worth keeping in your life, because it shows that since they care about you, they are willing to try. If there's a person in your life who is just completely like rejecting everything, not willing to like change their mindset or understand or do anything, they're just strictly nope, you're wrong, and it stays like that for a long time, at that point, you need to cut that person out of your life because they are just continuously disrespecting you and not trying to make a change. I know that that really sucks, and I know that that's really hard, but sometimes it just needs to be done. I think that your immediate response to negativity shouldn't be just reject it. I think that there should definitely be some sort of cooperation between you and the person who's giving you negativity. And so I don't want anyone to take this as being like, my dad said this and my mom said that, so fuck you guys. And finally, we're at the random, miscellaneous, whatever the frick questions. Do you believe that if a woman is bi and then marries a man, that she is now straight or bi? She is bi. And I don't understand why this is so difficult for some people to understand. It doesn't matter if a bisexual woman marries a man, because she still finds other women attractive. And vice versa, if a woman marries a woman and that woman is bi, she will still find men attractive, because they can split up in the future and end up with someone of the same sex or the opposite sex, because bisexuality just works like that. Why is that so hard for people to understand? In every community, there are always unsupportive people. How do you get past this? I've already said it before in this video, but I will say it again. There are always going to be Remember that. There are always going to be people who don't support you, and as much as that sucks, it's just a fact of life. There are always going to be people who are going to try and tear you down for who you are. Really, at the end of the day, that's their problem and not yours. And I think that if you find yourself in that situation, the biggest power move that you can do is to not only be who you are, but be happy in who you are. For the people who don't support you, you need to understand, okay, well, why are they saying these things? Did they grow up believing a certain thing because of just a community that they were raised? It's very important to remember that you know who you are, and the only person who can say who you are is you. Nobody else gets to define you. I think people in the LGBT community can have internalized phobia towards the community. Absolutely. There's definitely a lot of discrimination within the LGBT community that a lot of people outside the community don't really see. Based off of what I've seen, it's specifically targeted at non-binary people and bisexual people. With the non-binary people, it's the whole like, there are only two genders, and then with the bisexual people, it's like, you have to pick a side. Have you gained any friends from coming out / interacting with LGBT websites? Yes. Not really on the part of like interacting with LGBT websites, but my best friend I actually met at my old high school's GSA, so you know who you are. Love you. Any tips for becoming more comfortable with yourself after coming out? I can try. Like I said earlier, I came out at a time where I really wasn't confident in myself, and doing that really made it hard for me to gain self-confidence after coming out. And I think that the best tip I can give is going back to, you know who you are and nobody else gets to define you. You really need to remember at the end of the day, you are doing this for you. You aren't doing it for anybody else. You have to be doing things because they make you happy and they make you feel really comfortable in your skin, not because you're trying to satisfy anybody else. I think one example that I can give is body hair, because I stopped shaving at a certain point when I came out. It's a social standard that women have to shave, but men don't have to shave, and so when I stopped shaving, it made me feel more comfy and made me feel more like a guy. But also when I stopped shaving, my mom was really against it, and so I felt really self-conscious about my body hair. I felt really uncomfortable wearing like shorts or like cuffing my pants or wearing shirts where the armholes were big so you can see my underarm hair. Got to a point where I was just like, hey, this is about me, not you, me. Rude. So I'm going to not shave, I'm going to cuff my pants, I'm going to show my body hair to the world. No one can stop me. Yeah, I don't know if any of that made any sense, but there you go. Advice on being true to yourself and not trying to fit stereotypes of what you identify as. Here's the thing with stereotypes. Stereotypes don't help anybody. And I, for one, don't think it's a bad thing if you fit into stereotypes of what you identify as. I just think it's a bad thing if you are trying to make yourself into that stereotype. Like if you are a gay man and you are just by nature more flamboyant, it's perfectly fine because that's just who you are. But if you're trying to be flamboyant because you are a gay man, that's not cool because that is just you trying to fit in a certain label. To me, it doesn't matter if you fall into stereotypes as long as you are being your 100% authentic self. How long has it been since you fully realized your sexuality as well as your gender identity? Oh, that was awful to read. So, I came out, hold on, I have to do math. So the first time I came out to anybody was my sophomore year in high school. I was 15. I think I was 15, almost 16. So if we round up saying I was 16, it would be 3 years since I came out to anybody. So I have been out to close friends for 3 years, my mom for roughly 2.5 years, and everybody else I would say about a year. But yes, at this point in my life, I am currently very out of the closet. Everybody knows who I am. Hi! What do you think of pansexualism? Love your style. Thank you. This is another thing that causes a lot of conflict within the LGBT community. People are just like, pansexual is just the spicy bi. So here's my 2 cents on it. Bisexual is the attraction to men and women, and then pansexuality is the attraction to all genders. I believe in the concept that there are men, women, and then the non-binary umbrella. There's also kind of a thought that bisexuality is for cis people and pansexuality is for trans people. That's not true. If a bisexual person isn't willing to date a trans person, that has nothing to do with the fact that they are bisexual. My dad doesn't want to acknowledge that I'm a lesbo. What do? Bring home a new girlfriend every week. Kidding, don't do it, that would probably make it worse. I think that one of the best things you can do in a situation like this is sit down with him and ask him what he doesn't understand about it and why he won't accept it. Because I think that a big misconception of unaccepting people in your life is that they hate you and they want you to die. Obviously, I can't speak for your dad because the only way that we can know where he's coming from is if you were to ask him. But I doubt that he's unaccepting of your sexuality because he hates you. He's probably unaccepting of your sexuality because he thinks that the gay is evil and he wants to keep you safe. And even though that way of thinking is obviously hurting you, just know that that comes from a place of him trying to like keep you happy and safe. And so I think it's really important for you to communicate that his way of thinking is doing more harm than good. So yeah, just try and figure out where he's coming from, and then you can tell him how that makes you feel, and then just try and meet in the middle. Have you had any experiences with homophobic/transphobic people? So bad I can't even say the word. Short answer, yes. Long answer, not exactly. As far as like real life interactions, I haven't had anybody walk up to me and be like, you were born a girl, you will always be a girl. Aside from like complexities and coming out, I've never had a situation where I've introduced myself to somebody and then they were like transphobic to me. I could definitely tell that they weren't super into it, but I've never had anybody like directly like disrespect me. Online is a whole other situation, because if you're like me and you make YouTube videos and you're very active online, you're going to get people who don't like you, which is fine. I have gotten like transphobic comments here and there on my YouTube videos, but honestly I find them more funny than anything. It would be a lot different if it was somebody like in real life trying to tell me those things, but when it comes to like people online, it's just like, how much do you think you're doing? You're a person who chose to watch my videos, and you think that you can just change my whole identity by saying you're a girl. Do you think A/Aro people are valid and belong in the LGBT community? This is another thing I forgot to mention when it comes to discrimination within the LGBT community, but yes, asexual people exist, and a lot of people are like, do they belong in the LGBT community? Do they not belong in the LGBT community? But yes, I do think that asexual people belong in the LGBT community. I can understand where people are coming from when they say that they don't. I personally think that they do, because even though asexuality is the lack of sexual attraction, it still has to do with sexuality. What stereotype about gays do you hate the most? The thing that I really don't like is when people try and say that the LGBT community isn't appropriate for certain audiences. This comes more from like right-wing people and conservative people thinking that like the LGBT community isn't appropriate for kids, because in those situations people can't separate the idea of gay and sex, which those two words aren't interchangeable. And like if a little kid, like a child, says that they might like somebody of the same gender, they like freak out and be like, how do you know, you're just a child? But to all the straight people out there who think like this, think about when you were a kid and you had your first crush. Was your first thought, wow, I want to ram that into a mattress? I don't fucking think so! Just makes me so mad, because like if a little kid has a crush on somebody of the opposite gender of them, people are like, oh, how cute, it's adorable. But then if a little kid has a crush on somebody of the same gender, it's like, they're inappropriate! They can't know this. They're just a child. I just think that that's really frustrating. I think it's really important to show young kids who think that they're part of the LGBT community acceptance, and I really think it's important to expose kids to that. Because in my case, I had no idea that I was trans because I wasn't exposed to that kind of stuff. As a kid, if I had known that I could actually be a boy, I would have been like, oh yeah, sounds great, let's do that. Since I wasn't exposed to that stuff growing up, I didn't have the right dictionary to put to words how I feel. Does that make any sense? Who's your favorite LGBT celebrity / YouTuber? Okay, I'll start with YouTubers because YouTube. Miles McKenna, obviously. Mac Does It, obviously. Shane Dawson, obviously. Those are like the main ones that I think a lot of people really like. So Jamie Dodger, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's another trans guy. He's really cool. So I'm an artist. I follow a lot of artist YouTubers, and some LGBT art YouTubers that I can recommend you follow is ABD Illustrates. Another one is Emily Artful. She is art by mom. I love her a lot. Her art is amazing. She does a lot of watercolor stuff. As far as celebrities go, the first one I have to mention is Brendan Urie. A king. Troye Sivan, also iconic. Haley Kiyoko, also iconic. These are all musicians. Forget his name, but the singer to Neon Trees, he's really cool. The singer to Against Me, I believe her name is Laura Jane Grace. There are probably more, but those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. When is the best time to come out as trans? So many people wonder when it's the best time to come out, and the best time is when you want. If you are in a place where you are comfortable with who you are, and if you are in a place where you are safe to come out, then there is really no right time to do it. It's just a matter of when you are willing to do it. Do you think there should be more LGBTQ represented in media, example TV shows for kids and adults? Yes, 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 yes. Even though the world has made a lot of progress in accepting LGBT people, there's still a lot of discrimination that we face today, and a great way to help normalize that is through the media. Nowadays, media is such a big thing because not only do we have like TVs and movies, but we also have the internet. And so whether it's like TVs, movies, books, or just whatever, I think that it's a very good idea to incorporate more LGBT people in the media. And it's not only as a way to help kids who are LGBT understand who they are and that what they're feeling is normal, but it also helps normalize it to people who aren't in the LGBT community. Things like homophobia and transphobia, those things are learned. They are not a natural thing that comes within people. If people grow up in a world where the LGBT community is hated, that person's probably going to hate the LGBT community. Is it okay to wear a chest binder even if you are not transgender? I would say so, yeah. To me, wearing a chest binder doesn't really have anything to do with being trans. It has more to do with like expressing yourself. And yeah, for a lot of people that means they're wearing it because they're trans, but there are plenty of people who aren't trans and born female and don't like their chest or want a flatter chest because they just like the way that it looks. Do you have any tips for someone who is bi-curious? How do we figure it out? Just like coming out, there's no one right way to figure out who you are. Some people go based entirely on their thoughts and their feelings. Other people go based entirely on experience. And there's a lot of people who go in between. Really, it's just a matter of what you're comfortable doing and how you want to go about it. It doesn't matter what you're figuring out, whether it's your sexuality or your gender. Don't be afraid to take your time with things. If you rush things, then it's going to be really stressful and not good for you. I also want to say not to be afraid to change your labels. I feel like that's something that not a lot of people really talk about. It's perfectly okay to change your labels. When I came out as non-binary, but now I identify as a guy, and that's because by doing things, I was able to find a label that suited me a lot better than I originally thought. How does one get a girlfriend? I will let you know once I figure that out. You gay or something? Almost. Have you gotten top surgery or started hormones? At this point in my life, I had not, but that is something that I am definitely going to do in the future. If I had the option to do those things right now, I definitely would. But you see, Florida kind of sucks, and I don't have health insurance, and I can't pay for it because I'm broke, so hormones aren't really an option for me at the moment, but as soon as they do become an option, I'm definitely going to take that. How well do you think the LGBT community is being represented? Sometimes I look at LGBT representation and I'm like, hey, that's pretty good. But then other times I look at LGBT representation and I'm just like, that isn't great. And that goes back to, while we have made a whole lot of progress, there's still a lot that needs to be done. Hello, how can I explain to people I'm a non-binary person? Help, please. The whole concept of being non-binary, I think, is something that a lot of people are still trying to wrap their heads around. People seem to think that it's this like new, really strange concept that originated from Tumblr, but really the idea of a gender being not male or not female has existed for God knows how freaking long, man. Don't necessarily have to get real, like, official and professional with it to explain, like, hey, this is what I am. And if they ask questions, answer them. I believe in the concept that there is no stupid question, and if you are in a situation where you are trying to educate yourself and learn about something that you're really unfamiliar with, you're going to ask stupid questions. You're going to ask offensive questions. If people do ask you those questions, you have to figure out if it's a place from just them not knowing or them trying to be an ass. Because there's a big difference, and a lot of the times you can easily tell. If somebody does ask you those questions, don't get upset and don't get offended. Just be like, that's an offensive question, or I'm not comfortable answering that because XYZ. Is it disrespectful if we have a villain OC that's LGBT? I can definitely understand where you're coming from because it can seem like you're villainizing or criminalizing the LGBT community. Really don't make being LGBT their personality trait, and don't make being LGBT the reason that they're a villain, and you should be good. If a man that is transgender is homosexual, then is he attracted to males or females? He's attracted to males because he's a guy. Did you realize your gender identity or sexuality at first? I realized my gender at first, but that's more of because I was looking for an answer with my gender. I feel like if I was more focused on finding my sexuality than my gender, I would have come to a conclusion with my sexuality far sooner than I did with my gender. Finding an answer to who I was as far as gender is concerned, that took a really long time. But like finding an answer to what my sexuality was more of just like, oh, bi? Yeah, sounds great. Did I come out to friends or family first? That is entirely up to you. For me personally, I came out to my friends first because I knew that my friends were really supportive of the LGBT community, and a lot of my friends were LGBT, so I knew that coming out to them was definitely a safe space for me. Whereas with my family, it was a bit more of a gray area where I had no idea how they were going to react. For some people, it's the complete opposite for that. For some people, both places are a safe space. Really, it depends on who you are, who the people in your life are, and who you feel most comfortable around. Do you have any tips for binding without a binder? Before I give a proper answer, never ever 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 bind with ace bandages or duct tape or anything like that. It is so unsafe. It will do so much damage to your body. I know that dysphoria sucks, but don't do that. And now an actual answer to your question. I was in that situation where I couldn't get a binder. I didn't have access to it. What I did was the sports bra method. First, make sure the sports bras are your size. It doesn't matter if you're using sports bras or binders. It is very dangerous to use anything that is not your size. Make sure that it is your size. To bind with sports bras, you would just wear one regular, how you're supposed to wear a sports bra, and then you would wear one over that, but turn it backwards. And so the front would be on your back and the back would be over your chest. It definitely wasn't a perfect solution. It wasn't like as flat as a chest binder, but it was definitely better than nothing. And if you wear a shirt like this, where it's like a button down with some sort of pattern, or just like a baggy graphic t-shirt, that can help you look a lot more flat too. Is it okay to not have a moment where you realize your sexuality? Absolutely. I think that this is a great time to talk about labels. I think a lot of people focus too much on finding a label instead of focusing on if they need to find a label. For me, I needed to find a label because that's what made me feel most comfortable and gave me the most validation. But there are people in the world where finding a label just stresses them out and it doesn't do them any good. It is absolutely okay if you want to try and find a label to identify yourself, but don't do it because you feel like you need to, and only do it if it will give you some sort of comfort. What do you think of gay jokes? I think it depends entirely on what the joke is and who's saying it. Making jokes about sexuality is something that can really come off as really distasteful, so just be careful with that. Do you bind? And if you do, with what? I do bind. I bind every single day. If you do that, just be sure you're binding within a certain time period. Don't bind for more than 10 hours. You should strive for 8 hours at most. And I bind with binders from DC2B. They are a really cool binder company. I usually get the half-cut binders, mostly because I get really warm easily, and having the full-length tank top looking binder would be a little bit for me. What do you think of the argument that queer is a slur? There is absolutely no arguing that queer is a slur. It definitely is. And it's one of those things that the community is just trying to reclaim, because it's something that has been used to insult LGBT people for a really long time, but now it's a label that a lot of the LGBT community is wearing proudly. I do think that we need to be aware that reclaiming it isn't for everybody though. Like, there are people who have a negative history with that word, or they just don't like it for whatever reason, and I think that that's something that we really need to respect. Does gender dysphoria start developing at a certain age, or is it something you always have? It entirely depends on the person. There are times where you won't have gender dysphoria at all, but then around puberty, dysphoria can get really, really bad. There are times where people have really bad dysphoria all their life. There are times where dysphoria can start pretty mild, but then as they grow older, it gets really bad. It entirely depends. Lastly, I'm gay, give me advice. I mean, I hope you got something from this video. If not, then there was literally no point in me doing this. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful to you in any way. Let me know if any of this helped you. If you have any further questions, comment them down below and I will do my very best to answer. And if you have any other advice or just tips that I didn't say in this video, feel free to also leave those in the comments below. I'm sure they will be of great help to somebody out there. I do want to close off this video by saying, again, everything in this video are my opinions and based off of my experience as a bisexual trans guy. This experience is not universal, so the advice that I can give is from me, my life, my feelings. A lot of the advice in this video probably won't work for every single person out there. In fact, I know it won't work for every single person out there, and that's perfectly fine. Don't feel like you have to follow everything that I say in this video to a T, because this is just the best that I can do. And with that, we are done. I have been filming for a lot longer than I had originally planned, and I was filming standing up, which was a bad idea because now my legs hurt. I'm gonna go. Thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you aren't subscribed. I do mostly art videos, but every now and again I'll do just a fun video like this. I'm going to be making an LGBT themed video every week in June, so subscribe if that's something that you're interested in. My social media is on screen now as well as in the description below. If you ever want to follow me on any of that, I'm most active on Instagram, so I can recommend following me there over any of my other social medias. And there's a video on screen now as well as in the iCard for you to check out if you're interested. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna go pet my dog now. Bye.